I'm going to go ahead
This
start
meeting is
recording.
recorded.
All right, so welcome to the Tennessee STEM and STEAM designation webinar. This is the last of this particular series in the webinar. And today we're really going to go over a high-level overview of the entire process. And by the time we finish, hopefully you see how this framework really can shape and be a tool for continuous school improvement for your school. My name's Kristen McQueen. I am the STEM Relationship Manager with the Tennessee STEM Innovation Network. I've been with the network going on 2 years. I spent about 10 years in the classroom before joining the network. I was a STEM teacher in a K-4 school and was able to help that school earn designation. And I've actually seen this process twice. The school that I taught in, the first year we went for it, we didn't earn it. The second year we went for it, we did earn it. So I have had experience and seen it from both ends. So a little bit of that empathy, being able to help schools from both sides there get to the goal that you're desiring. So just a little bit of what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about what the process is and why your school should pursue it. The process and applying. We're going to look at all 5 attributes and break those down a little bit. We're also going to show you some sample evidence pieces of potential artifacts. We'll talk about the suggested timeline, the different designation levels, and a slew of resources that you have available as you go throughout this process. When we think about the Tennessee STEM and STEAM school designation, really in order for us to be a national leader when it comes to STEM and STEAM education, here at the network and the Tennessee Department of Ed, we had to create frameworks that allow teachers to be able to integrate quality STEM and STEAM opportunities, develop critical thinking skills, and provide new experiences for students, and really create something that we were able to identify and recognize schools that were committed to the STEM and STEAM initiative. So with the designation, we're able to provide guidance and examples, and we're able to recognize those schools. And this process is aligned to the state STEM and STEAM strategic plan. And just as that plan continues to build as STEM and STEAM initiative change, then hold on, let me get these 2 people in real quick. Then we are updating that process as well. You know, we live in the design cycle too. Every year that the designation season restarts, we look over and make sure that we are still providing high quality and authentic frameworks and resources and information to help get your school to where it wants to be as you go through this process. And here at the network, we do have a strategic plan that supports the STEM and STEAM designation process. And we do this through a couple of different ways. We have professional development, and our professional development is really about connecting educators to be able to share best practices and promote professional learning. We have a variety of professional development opportunities, and we'll talk about those towards the end when we talk about resources. Our classroom opportunities. We have a couple of different programs that students are encouraged to be a part of. We have Defined Learning, Defined Careers, Elevate Tennessee. All of those are free for different grade levels in the state of Tennessee. And those programs really promote critical thinking and problem solving skills and really get students introduced to a variety of STEM and STEAM careers. We also support computer science, so a comprehensive presence of computer science education as a part of the STEM and STEAM experience for all learners here in Tennessee. And we have just revamped our computer science piece on our website. So definitely make sure that you check that out to look at all of the new resources that we have available for computer science. And all of this work that we do here at the network really does support the STEM and STEAM school designation attributes, and they really encourage an inclusive STEM and STEAM learning environment for all students. Now let's talk about what this process really looks like, why you should do it, and then we'll really dive into the different attributes. So this process was developed in partnership with the Department of Ed and the STEM Leadership Council. It is a portfolio-based application, and it is aligned to the Tennessee STEM and STEAM designation rubric. Earning designation, schools are granted a $30,000 grant, and we have developed a roadmap, which is really what we're talking about today, to help you implement this STEM and STEAM framework within your building. This map kind of gives you a bird's eye view. We'll look a little closer at the map as we go throughout the webinar today, but it really just gives you a holistic view of what our state looks like right now when we think about STEM and STEAM designated schools. So we currently have 88 schools across the state that are designated. And just quickly looking at this map, we know that we still have work to do, and that's why we're excited that you're here and willing to put these initiatives forward within your building. When we think about the benefits of becoming a STEM or STEAM designated school, you really become a model school for the Department of Ed, and really being able to support and improve and progress other schools as they think about this process. So you really become not only a state model and mentor, but you also become that local mentor to schools close proximity to your area as they think about infusing STEM or STEAM initiatives in their building. And really this process is about telling your story. We're all doing great things in our building, and it's really about showcasing that and letting stakeholders, letting your community, your parents know all the great things that are happening in your building, and really rallying behind your kids because we know that STEM is best practice, and we do know that this is the way that students want to learn when it comes to sustaining this type of learning within your building. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty a little bit here as we think about this process. So it's really a 4-step process, even though each process has a little bit of different weight as far as the amount of time that it takes to complete each of these steps. So the first step is completing the intent to apply and the self-assessment. Both of those are together. So you fill out the intent to apply and you submit the self-assessment. And really the self-assessment is an opportunity for you and your leadership team to sit down and really work through the rubric together and self-select or self-evaluate where you currently are in the process. So it's a really good way for you to know where you are, and for us to see where you are too. So that self-assessment is really important because it's really what drives the one-to-one conversation. So you see on there that you get a scheduled one-to-one phone call after the intent to apply closes, and that self-assessment for each school really drives that conversation. That really lets us be able to provide you with valuable feedback and authentic ways for you to be able to move forward and drive the rest of the application.
When she talks to them, like I listened 2 times today. Well, I just said after 2 days.
Just make sure that you're muted if you don't mind. Sorry, we are recording. So I just want to make sure that it doesn't get too much background noise. So step 2 is the application. So the application piece opens in October. And so you have from October all the way up till January with that. So the application is housed on a platform called Slide Room. And we have been through numerous different platforms, and Slide Room really does seem to be the most applicable. And it can house almost any file type that you could think of, which is really nice. It also has the ability to start and save work. Definitely, this isn't something that you're going to do in one setting. So it's definitely nice to be able to go in multiple times to be able to save work at any time as you work on it. So that application is open for viewing in October. Number 3, there are site visits. So once the application is turned in January, the STEM and STEAM review designation team reviews the applications, which takes us several weeks. And then we start scheduling site visits in late February, and they go all the way through March. Our review team is made up of staff from the Department of Ed, staff from TSIN, and then we also have STEM and STEAM administrators, district leaders, and teachers from across the state that are represented as well on that team. We only will visit schools that are being considered for designation. So we'll talk about the different designation levels towards the end. So just kind of keep that in mind. And the number 4 there is the designation announcement. Schools that earn STEM and STEAM designation are notified in mid-April, and then they are recognized at the Tennessee STEM Innovation Summit in May by the Department of Ed. And that's just a really sweet and special moment for schools. After all of this hard work, you really get to take in and bask in the glory, and you're really on a high in that moment. And it's really nice that you get to celebrate with the commissioner during that piece as well. All right, so our 4 steps here. Now we're going to talk about what your school would need to do as you think about these 4 steps. So really thinking from the ground up, what does my school need to do? So steps to designation. So it really starts with 2 pieces, and they go hand in hand together. And that's the development of your STEM or STEAM action plan and your leadership team. So both of these pieces fall into place kind of simultaneously. Creating a leadership team, making sure that you have multiple voices on that leadership team. You know, leadership teams can consist of people outside of admin and teachers. It can consist of community members, parents, students, but having as many voices as you can and as many stakeholders as you can will lend itself to a high quality action plan. Not only do we develop this leadership team, but we also ensure that the leadership team is receiving professional development. You know, later on we talk about teacher professional development, but it's also just as important that the leadership team has received professional development too, that addresses leadership practices and current STEM or STEAM educational issues that kind of help drive that STEM action plan forward. When you're developing your STEM action plan, 2 other pieces that you think about is your school environment and your school schedule. So your school environment should be designed, adapted, or created for a culture of inquiry. So how are students having the opportunities to collaborate? When you think about your school schedule, thinking about, and I don't envy any principal who has to develop a master schedule. I have done it. It is hard. It's putting a giant puzzle piece together that sometimes you can't ever seem to make fit. But when we think about a master schedule, thinking about allowing time for teachers to collaborate, allowing time for students to participate in non-traditional activities. And that could be like your specials or your encore rotations. And also time for students to be able to work on project or problem-based learning opportunities or experiences. So that's really that first piece, is developing your STEM action plan. And not only does your leadership team need to know about your STEM action plan, but your whole faculty should know about the STEM action plan, because it really gives you a bird's eye view of everything that's happening in your building. After you finish the STEM action plan, you're going to be touching on every attribute. So you should know exactly what your STEM and STEAM culture looks like as you finish your STEM action plan. And your teachers should know that too. So once our STEM action plan is set into place, we're going to drop down to the second bucket, which is talking about the STEM and STEAM integrated curriculum. And here, this is really looking at the curriculum that our school currently uses and finding ways to authentically and naturally bring in problem and project-based learning units, making sure that that is now the bulk, the shift of the curriculum. And within these PBLs, all of these other things come with it. So within these PBLs, you think about how the engineering design process is being implemented in all classrooms. So that EDP becomes a part of your academic language. students can naturally speak to it. When they're talking about a project, they can refer back to the EDP because they understand that it's a recursive nature. Technology, when we think about technology, not only in PBLs, but when we think about technology in the classroom, making sure that it's purposeful, right? Making sure that we can really leverage the technology that we do have, or the technology, or maybe we don't have technology, but we do have a few pieces of technology. We're very purposeful and authentic of how we allow our students to incorporate that. We think about STEM and STEAM career exploration. So when we look at our rubric for this one, in order to earn model for STEM and STEAM careers, monthly exposure is key. So the key word is monthly. So how are we exposing our students to STEM and STEAM career exploration? Thinking about post-secondary readiness skills and then enrichment learning activities. So all of that in that second bucket is really thinking about the curriculum that we have set in place, the PBLs that we're planning, how we're getting students involved in the EDP. How is it a part of our culture? How is it a part of their academic vocabulary? And then how are we making sure that students are exposed to careers? The last bucket on this page is talking about teacher PD. So up at the top in the action plan, we think about the leadership team PD, making sure that our leaders who are helping guide us through this process have experienced, STEM and STEAM PD. But then we think about our teachers. We can't ask our teachers to implement something that they don't have support in. So making sure that we have provided ample opportunity for our teachers to learn about STEM and STEAM initiatives, to learn about the school's goals and where they want to go, and really the ability to be able to design PBLs. Allowing opportunities for teachers to be able to co-design together, to collaborate together, and really understand what that process of building out a PBL looks like, which we offer. Spoiler alert, we offer PD on all of those, and they're free. We'll talk about those at the end as well. So we have our action plan, we think about our curriculum, we think about our PD for our teachers, and then the last two buckets here, we think about the assessments. So we're all data driven, right? Data. But data does make a well-rounded STEM program. So really thinking about all the different variety of performance assessments that we use in our building and how we can use them to drive our STEM and STEAM program forward and make decisions about instruction. And this can be done in a variety of ways. We'll look at some sample pieces of evidence when we talk about assessments, and really this one has so much natural evidence that you could submit to this one, because we all have data. We all have different performance assessments that we use daily. The second bucket is really about partnerships. And even though it's the last bucket, note that community partners are within all of these buckets, right? Because if we put a community partner on our leadership team, then they've become a part of our action plan. If we have put them on our leadership team, then we've hooked them in from the beginning, and they're helping our teachers plan PBLs because they might not be the expert in that field. But really, that number 5 is community partnerships. That's the 5th attribute. And it's really looking to see that industry and community partners are established because they help create a concrete connection to the outside world and makes it real life for students. But then we also think about work-based learning, which is going to look drastically different if you're elementary versus high school, because we're not going to take 6-year-olds into a factory, right? But there are different types of work-based learning that can be exposed to students in K-12. And then if you're in high school, thinking about field experiences, internships, externships, college opportunities, CTE, all of those things. And all of that leads us into a site visit. So now what we're going to do is we are going to break down each of the attributes. We've kind of done like a little high-level overview of how to get there, and now we're going to backtrack and start with attribute 1, and we're really going to look at what's inside each of these attributes. And I'll pause after each attribute to make sure that we don't have any questions before we move on to a particular attribute. And really what this is going to do is we're going to talk about each attribute, and then I'm going to give you a couple of sample pieces of evidence or artifacts that could be submitted to support that particular attribute. So we have 5: infrastructure, curriculum and instruction, PD, achievement, and community and post-secondary partnerships. So the first one that we're going to dive into is our first one, which is infrastructure. And really, to become a Tennessee designated STEM and STEAM school here, you've developed that STEM action plan that we've talked about. The STEM action plan really is the driver of this application process, because again, it really gives you a bird's eye view of everything that's happening in your building. So that STEM strategic plan is grounded in research. It's been developed with the leadership team. It's received feedback from all the faculty, everyone on board, everyone on the ship knows what's going on. And so each of the following attributes within infrastructure really support a well-rounded STEM program. And inside infrastructure, there are 5 attributes. We have 1.1 to 1.5, and 1.1 is the action and sustainability plan. Schools are welcome to adopt this however you see fit. However, we do already have a ready-made template for you. So when in doubt, don't reinvent the wheel if you don't want to. There is a ready-made template for you, which I'll show you in our resources page. 2 is that leadership team. So making sure that our leadership team is established, that you are collaborating and using dialogue frequently. Everyone's involved in the action plan, but also staff is also involved as well. 1.3 is leadership PD. So making sure that not only our teachers, but also our leaders are participating in PD that addresses STEM and STEAM educational issues. And this just really helps you as the school leader to promote best practices, because you've been through it and you know what it is, and really promote this innovative leader concept as you move forward. 1.4 is school environment. So thinking about how our facilities have been adapted or designed for STEM and STEAM learning. And this can look like a variety of things. I'll show you a couple of sample evidences, but this can look like an outdoor classroom, a school garden, an additional empty classroom, a lab, a makerspace on wheels. So it can look like tables, desks. I mean, it can look like a variety of things. And then 1.5 is our school schedule. So again, looking over that master schedule, thinking about how we're creating time for teachers to collaborate, and that can look like PLCs. It can look like faculty meetings, but how are we providing consistent time for teachers to collaborate? Because we know that with collaboration will come high quality PBLs. It will allow integration of subjects, and then non-traditional activities. So again, that can be things like our specials, our encore. It can be our enrichment activities. Lots of different things can support that as well. All right, so let's look at a couple of sample pieces, and then I'll stop and ask if anyone has any questions about attribute 1. So sample 1.1, it's just a screenshot of our blank STEM action plan. So again, I told you that we had a ready-made template, so you are free to download this template and use it. You can adopt and your own and tweak it and make it fit your building. But when in doubt of what should be on your action plan, definitely refer to this checklist. 1.2 was a leadership team. So you can see that this sample evidence piece that was submitted is a meeting agenda and meeting minutes from a leadership team. 1.3 was leadership PD. So again, this is just a table It listed the PDs that were attended. It gave us a little overview of that, the date and the faculty members that were there. 1.4 was about school environment. So really thinking about how the school is set up for collaboration. And again, these are just pictures showing that students are collaborating in a variety of ways and showing a mobile STEM lab on wheels. And then 1.5 was school schedules. And again, this is a example of a master calendar. Now you can see that there are some things that are like explained throughout. Now, most everyone that will be on the STEM and STEAM designation review team has classroom experience, but there are times when we look at a school schedule and there's acronyms that we don't know because maybe it's an acronym special to your school. So it's always nice to kind of break apart what that acronym means for us to fully grasp the schedule and understand that. So if you have an acronym or you have something that you don't think is easily noticed by an outside eye, just make sure to provide an additional piece of sentence there that kind of explains and supports that. So this is infrastructure. So this is really focusing on the leadership team, the action plan, and really just kind of the body of the school. When we think about it like that. Does anybody have any questions about infrastructure itself? All right. We will move to attribute number 2, which is curriculum and instruction. And this is like rumored to be like the most important. However, all attributes within the rubric are important. This is the meatiest, I will say, as far as this has the most sub attributes in it. So this is a big bulk of the application, but it doesn't hold higher importance. I think all of them evenly support each other when we think about importance, but the curriculum and framework here, we really think about the Tennessee state standards and how they're interconnected and show connections between science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And here, project-based learning and problem-based learning really become a substantial part of the curriculum. So each of these following attributes really support this framework of a well-rounded STEM program. So this has 7 attributes within curriculum and instruction. So it starts with project and problem-based learning. And here, this is your PBLs. So are your PBLs student-led? Are they engaged in real-world content? Do they lend themselves to have multiple solutions? Or are students solving all of the same problem because they've been given the same prompt and the same solution? I mean, does it lend itself to students being able to find multiple solutions? 2.2 is the EDP and design thinking. And so this really plays hand in hand into 2.1 because it allows students or requires students to demonstrate knowledge of the EDP. So again, this piece really becomes part of the academic vocabulary throughout the building of your school. You know, you want to be able to walk up to a student and say, tell me about something that you're working on, and they're able to knowledgeably tell you about the project or problem that they're working towards and use this type of academic vocabulary when they're talking about the EDP. And understanding that it's a recursive nature. Most of us live in the design thinking cycle all the time, and we don't even realize it. But helping students kind of point these steps out is key to allowing them to see that it is a recursive nature. 2.3 is quality of technology. So again, thinking about how we are using technology, how it's embedded. And we spent the last 3 years using technology. So I feel very confident that as teachers, we have found all kinds of new ways to integrate technology and embed it within our lessons and our activities and students too. 2.4 is exploring STEM and STEAM careers. So really thinking about different experiences or opportunities that you're able to provide to help students understand the different careers, jobs that are out there that relate to STEM and STEAM. We have several different programs available through our network, thanks to our partnership with the Department of Ed. We have Defined Learning, we have Defined Careers, and Elevate Tennessee, all of which explore careers. So that is an easy program to begin implementation as you think about how you can make sure that you're getting that exposure to students about careers. 2.5 is college and career readiness. So here you're really thinking about the employability skills checklist. Now, this is a quick Google search. The Department of Ed released the employability skills checklist, and it really is just focusing on the 4 C's. So thinking about how they're communicating, being creative, collaborating, thinking critically. And really this can look like a variety of ways too. It can look like videos, it can look like a lesson plan. So we'll look at sample evidence in just a second. 2.6 is integrity of academic content. So this really is the ability and the desire to bend or naturally fit in multiple subjects or multiple standards, all tied to Tennessee state standards within a PBL, really focusing on a big idea or a foundational skill that's particularly targeted in a discipline. So just how are we authentically bringing in multiple touch points of the standards that we're required to teach. And then the last one in curriculum instruction, 2.7, is enrichment learning activities. And this, I hope we're really getting back to a place where this is able to ramp back up. I think we saw a pause in this in the last several years. So we're excited to get to a point where we can see clubs and activities happening again in schools, because kids love being able to participate in those things. But it's just an opportunity to participate in STEM or STEM enrichment activities. And this can happen before school, during school, or after school. So like I said, this is the meatiest chunk as far as it does have the most sub attributes within it. But let's look at different pieces of evidence that you could submit for attribute 2. So looking at 2.1, which was PBLs. So here you can see this is just a table. It lists the PBL description. So it just gives us a little overview of what that PBL is about, what grade level it was implemented with, how many students it impacted, and then the PBL is linked within that chart too. So then the review team can click on that link and review the PBL. 2.2 was the engineering design process. So here again, we talked about how it's important that we can show that students are going through this recursive nature. So for this particular sample that I pulled, or from this particular school, this school was highlighting a particular project that really showcased students using the EDP. So not only did they put in the EDP that their school had adopted, they tied in the project itself and the lab sheet that supported that process. 2.3, quality of technology. You can see here, this has 2 different side-by-side pieces on it. A Nearpod, which shows students going in and drawing different things to a particular prompt, and then Skype with a scientist. So both of those are sample pieces for 2.3. 2.4 was all about STEM and STEAM careers. So you can see here, these are just pictures of professionals meeting with students to talk to them about a variety of different things related to their particular job. 2.5 down in the corner there was college and career readiness. So this one was really focused on that employability skills checklist. And so you can see here, there's actually a video attached to this, and I mean, for data purposes, I'm not going to show you the video, but or security purposes. But this video really showed students showcasing that employability skills checklist, focusing on those 4 C's. So again, and then they also provided the project that supported that video, whatever the students were working on, particularly at that time. 2.6 is a piece of a lesson plan that shows that they tie to multiple different subjects and multiple different standards. And then 2.7 is again a simple table for being able to list the after school, during school, whatever type of enrichment activities that you have, a description, the grade level involved, and the number of students. Now that we're into attribute 2, you can probably already start seeing that multiple pieces of evidence can be used, and that is true. There is no limit to how many times you use evidence. You can use evidence more than once. If I have placed a PBL in 2.1 and then I want to be able to show it in EDP, then I can use it again there as well. So there are multiple pieces of evidence that you can use as long as it matches that attribute and fits the standard for that attribute, then you can use it however many times that you'd like. Questions about attribute 2, which was curriculum and instruction. All right, we are going to move into attribute 3, which is professional development. And as we think about professional development, so back in attribute 1, when we look at our infrastructure, we focus on our leadership team, professional development. And here we really focus on making sure that our whole staff feels supported in this process. So really making sure that we provide opportunities for continuous learning based on our students' results, right? Based on our data, and teacher development, based on our short and long-term goals that come up in the STEM action plan. So just really using the STEM action plan, the leadership team, to kind of drive the needs of our PD and making sure that we have a personalized plan, that we create an environment that allows educators to continue to learn. We're always learning. It doesn't matter how high up that we sit on that T model. There are ways that we can always improve because the pendulum is always shifting, right? There's always something new that we can take and adapt for ourselves. So looking at professional development, we have 2 attributes. This one, we have 3.1 and 3.2. So 3.1 is looking at the quality of the STEM and STEAM professional learning. And so this can really look like not only are we thinking about PD, and we know our PD can happen, it can be a job embedded, right? It can be an outside source, but also each other, right? We as educators can learn from each other. So are there ways that we can provide opportunities for our teachers to visit each other, observe one another, learn from one another? So thinking about that too. 3.2 is designing PBLs. And this one really coincides with 2.1 when we're thinking about the project and problem-based curriculum. 3.2 is where teachers are designing PBLs, but we've provided PD for that to happen. We've provided PD that addresses the ability to integrate multiple content, multiple subjects, not only multiple subjects and standards, but we also think about all of the other things that go into a PBL. We think about the community and industry partner connection, a connection with a post-secondary institute. All a part in developing a high quality PBL. And not only that, it's custom design. I love that word, custom design. Although we never want to reinvent the wheel, right? If there are resources and PBLs that are out there, but we can custom design them to be relevant to the school that we're in, to the community that we're in, right? For example, Define Learning has tons of different performance tasks out there, and Define Learning's free for grades 5 through 8. And in fact, we just announced that their computer science piece curriculum is going to be available thanks to our partnership with the Department of Ed K-12. So you have all these different resources, and they do have ready-made lessons, right? Ready-made PBLs, which is a great place to start. But those also have the capability to be custom designed to fit your kids, your community, your school. So teaching your kids to really be aware of their surroundings. What problems and challenges do you see while you're driving home from school or riding the bus from school? Really teaching them to be those problem solvers when we think about that. Let's look at some sample evidence pieces here for professional development. So the first is a chart. The chart lists the PD, how it aligns, length, and faculty members involved. So making sure that you have a nice array of different PDs that support and align the quality of STEM and STEAM initiatives that you've set out in your action plan and in support of designing PBLs. This particular school also provided a couple of other evidence pieces here. You can see 4 different PowerPoints. A couple of them are with a community partner that they particularly sought out to help with a couple of PBLs. And then they developed a mentorship program that was also within there as well. 3.2 was designing PBLs. So you can see here, this school listed numerous different PBLs, all of which come from a different grade level, which is always really nice, right? If I'm coming from a school, each school is going to have multiple grade levels, and being able to show PBLs from each of those grade levels really provides the reviewers with a holistic view of what PBLs look like in each grade level. So not only did it come with these folders, but we could also see lesson plans. We could see a couple of pictures to support that as well. Anybody have any questions about attribute 3, which is professional development? And you can just come off mute. You can throw something in the chat. It's never a big deal to be interrupted. All right, well, we're going to power on through then. We're going to move into attribute 4, which is achievement. So with achievement, this is us thinking about the assessments that we're incorporating, how we're measuring student outcome, and what role data really plays in the decision making, and really who's involved in those conversations, right? Those are the questions that we think about. You know, how is our school approaching data analysis? How does data play a role in our instruction? And then who's involved in those conversations? So achievement has 2 attributes within it, 4.1 and 4.2. 4.1 is the performance assessments. So really thinking about the variety of assessments that you use within your building. And there are going to be multiples for you to think about when you think about evidence here, because we have pre and post assessments, right? We have benchmarks, we have state data, we have district data, we have tons of data that we can show, measure student outcomes and help drive teacher instruction. And really all of those things support a cohesive STEM program. And 4.2 is accountability. So not only do we have all these performance assessments that we're putting out to our students, but what are we doing with that data? So thinking about ongoing, vertical, horizontally aligned, formative, summative, all of which help drive us to promote student success. But within achievement too, so yes, we're thinking about data, we're thinking about assessments, but also what are our students? Are our students involved in this conversation? Do our students set goals? Do they revisit those goals? Do they understand their data? Lots of times if you're sitting in a parent-teacher conference, the teacher or the parent might not understand the data. The student might not understand the data. So how are we ensuring that our students know where they are, know what they need to do to get there, what supports they have in place, and how are they setting goals? So that's another piece of that as well. And then when we look at evidence, I feel like evidence is almost endless for 4.1 and 4.2 because it really can be a variety of things. It can be rubrics, it can be KWL charts, it can be report cards. Thinking about accountability, that's when we can get into AIMS or Encore or whatever particular benchmarks your district uses can also be used. But then we can look at data walls, goal walls, student notebooks or goal setting notebooks. So there are a variety of things that could be submitted for this particular piece of attribute 4, which is achievement. Questions on achievement? All right, we'll move into our last one, which is community and post-secondary partnerships. And really, our community and post-secondary partnerships really flourish from the beginning whenever we're thinking about infrastructure. But here they're really showcased. So how are our professionals, our community, our industry partners, post-secondary stakeholders, how does our school involve these partners? What role do the partners have? So those are the types of questions that you want to think about as you think about attribute number 5, is really how they're involved within your building, with your teachers, with your leadership team. And are they aware the STEM action plan? Are they aware of your goals of what it is that you're trying to do within your building? Lots of times as teachers start mapping out their PBLs for the year, right? There are going to be topics on PBLs that they're not experts in. And that's just the way that it goes, right? Because we're exposing our students to these real world problems. If I'm asking my students to build a water filtration system, I'm not an expert in that, but I do have a local water department that I can connect with, and I can say, this is what I want to do. Am I hitting the mark? We want to think about this as a threefold lens. And this isn't to say that every time you do a PBL, it should be a threefold lens, because that just doesn't happen naturally. But thinking about the threefold lens when it comes to PBLs is, am I engaging with community stakeholders before, during, and after? Threefold. So before, I've come up with this PBL idea, I want to reach out to them and say, what do you think? Am I hitting the mark? Am I doing it right? Is there things that the kids need to know that I don't know? One, in that first step, I've hooked them, right? They're interested. They've bought into what I'm doing. So during, which is step 2 of the threefold lens, I invite them into my classroom. I get them involved with the students. And then 3, I make sure that I've hooked them in. They're invested in this. I need to make sure that they're my authentic audience, right? So if I've involved them every step of the way, then my students are going to be invested in this partner too. So allowing them to be that authentic audience for the student to display or showcase their culminating event is important as well. And again, that's not to say that every PBL that your teachers are going to do, you're going to have this threefold lens, but 1 or 2 should just have a partner that is with you all the way, because it really does allow for a well-rounded STEM program. It allows for students to really be able to make those connections. And so this is broken up into 3 pieces. However, if you're elementary and middle school, it is really only 2. So 5.1 is partner supporting instruction. So evaluating these direct experiences that we provide outside of school for our students, bringing in outside professionals, but also this can happen during or outside of school, right? Because we could take them on field trips or virtual field trips. So knowing that this isn't something, partner supporting instruction doesn't have to happen in the classroom itself solely. 5.2 is work-based learning. Again, this can look drastically different. Elementary, it's going to look a lot more like exposure. So just making sure that students are aware of the different STEM and STEAM career fields out there that require certain skills. And then as you get into middle and high school, you're going to be able to more authentically provide those work-based learning experiences, because you can take students into factories or manufacturing plants because you don't have that age requirement, or you have students on a CTE pathway. So just making sure that you have that work-based learning experience opportunities for students. And then if you are high school, there is an additional 5.3, which is college opportunities. And this is all you're doing is just listing the different courses that you offer to students that get them college credit or career training certificates, and online is included in that as well. And it's just a simple table chart that you list there. And so sample artifacts here, both of these are just tables. So you're listing the partner that you have secured and how they support your school. And then vice versa on the work-based learning, you're listing the work-based learning opportunity, what it is and how it supports that initiative, and then the grade level or number of students involved. So both of those table charts are super sufficient. And these most of the tables that you've seen in all of these attributes, they're already ready-made in the application, right? So it's not something that you're having to go out and recreate the wheel. You're just simply filling in that information. Questions about number 5, community partnerships, post-secondary opportunities? All right. Well, let's talk about timeline. So we do talk about, schools. If you have looked at the intent to apply, you notice that you can say that you're going to do 2023 or you're going to do 2024, because thinking about this really is a 2-year process. I'll move this chat over here. I haven't had the chat open. I'm so sorry. I'll look at questions in just a second. It really does take time to really get your full faculty bought in and on board. It takes time to think about the cultural shift of implementing PBLs and the EDP and all of that jazz. So that's why you can see that there are 2023 or 2024, either one. It's just kind of both there to help you prepare. But in early fall, which is when we open intent to apply, allows you to complete that self-assessment. And really from that phone call that you get from us forward is really all the way till January. That's how long you have to kind of work on your application. That says December, false information. It's January. However, it's always nice to strive to be done with your application by December, right? So you can enjoy Christmas break. But applications actually are due January 15th for this particular season. And then in the spring, we do application reviews and site visits. And then in May, we have the announcements. And let's talk a little bit about supports here in just a second. This is just going to give you a nice array of dots filling up. It brings me lots of satisfaction to do this. It's crazy to think 88 dots all over the state, right? But it is clear that gaps are there, and it is clear that we've still more work to do. And again, that's why we're excited that you're here and that your school is interested in taking this on. Now let's talk about what you need to score, right? You do all of this hard work. It's important to know how you're scored and what that looks like. So there are 4 different pieces on the rubric when we think about scoring. So you have early, developing, accomplishing, and model. Each of those are the value. Early is 1, developing is 2, accomplishing is 3, and model is 4. And really early says, you know, that you've started implementation, but it's in the very early stages. Developing, it's clear that you've met some components of the rubric, but it's also evident that further development needs to be made. Accomplishing means that the school has met many of the expectations of the rubric. And then model is that highest level of implementation. So in order to earn designation, 90% of the rubric does have to be earned in that model status in order to be able to obtain STEM designation. So looking at model, elementary or middle has to earn at least a 65 to earn designation and earn model. And then high school has to earn at least a 69 model to earn designation. And theirs is a few points higher because remember they have that extra piece talking about college opportunities. So that's why theirs is slightly higher. Questions about points, implementation here. Again, 90% does have to be earned in that model status in order for you to earn designation. All right, well, we're going to wrap up here in just a second. We might go just a little past 4:30, but almost we're on the last leg here. We're going to talk quickly about resources and supports, and then we'll be finished. So our 5 supports that we have in place, we have our website, which we'll talk about, a mentorship model, our PL series, our webinar series, and of course us in the department. So when we think about our website and the different things that we have on there, if you visit our website under the STEM school designation tab, there are tons of resources there. So you'll find the rubric, a PBL template. Again, you can definitely adopt your own PBL template. When in doubt, there is a PBL template on there. The STEM action and sustainability plan is on there. The sample application is on there. A partnership agreement form. So if you you're wondering how to really hook in partnerships within your building, there is a sample agreement form that you and your partner could come to a consensus on that. Excuse me. And then they're outside of the designation page. You can find lesson plans. You can find PDs. Our website really is just chock full of information and resources out there. There are free programs for kids. There's the Define Learning, Define Careers, Elevate Tennessee. All of those are on our website too to kind of show you how to get started. Our hubs are another great resource that are on our site. There are 8 hubs all across the state. They have free PDs, they have lending libraries, lots of good stuff. So definitely take the time to really explore our site, even if you've just been to it and you're kind of familiar with stuff. We update this bad boy almost every single day with new information. So just make sure that you have that at your disposal as well. And all of this is free information, right? It's free PDs, free programs, free support. The mentorship model. So as schools go through this process of applying for designation, we do pair schools with a current designated school to kind of act as a mentor through that process. And I cannot recommend this more if I could. This is such a great opportunity because to talk to a school that's gone through the process and knows and can share with you successes and failures and things that you can do to improve and things not to do. It's just a really nice opportunity to work with a school who has been through this process. We try to pair schools with similar demographics. And then we do provide kind of a structure to kind of help facilitate that relationship with the mentor school. of how you can meet and all that jazz. But we do set it up to where you can tour each other's schools and just be a support throughout that whole year as you go through this process. Our PL series. So this is a new feature that we're offering. Again, this is all free, but thinking about the needs of your staff, especially after everything we've talked about today, you know, are there gaps in PDs that your staff still needs? We offer a variety of different topics. You can see that we even list a way for you to customize that topic, right? And this can be done at a faculty meeting. It can be a full day, half day. But again, you can visit our website for the PL series and fill out this form, and somebody from our team will contact you and get you on the schedule for that piece. And last, we have our webinar series. So again, this is the last of the designation application. And so our next support starts in November. And we will be diving into attributes. So if after everything we've gone over today, if there is an attribute that you still feel like maybe your staff or school may be weak in, or you maybe just have questions, right? We are going to break the attributes into its own separate webinar and really do a deep dive into each of the attributes. So feel free to join all or one. Notice that on the 14th, though, attribute 3 and 4 are together, simply because 3 and 4 are a little bit shorter. So if you're interested in attribute 3, you are going to do a deep dive into 4 as well. So I just wanted to note that out as well. All right. And then lastly, our contact information. It's important that as questions or concerns arise as you go throughout this process, you have our contact information. Mine is all the way over on the left side there. Audra Block is our partner with the Tennessee Department of Ed, and her and I work really closely throughout this process. She's the director of STEAM and computer science. And then Brandy Stroker is our director here, who also works really closely alongside me as we work through the STEM and STEAM programs and the process of designation. I'm going to leave that up for just a second in case you need to grab anything off of it. We are here to support you as you go through this process. It is daunting. It can seem overwhelming, but we are here. Don't ever feel like that you're doing it alone or by yourself. You have a leadership team. So just take advantage of the free resources that we have through us in the department. And we'll make sure that you are supported throughout this process. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing real quick. And I'm going to stop recording.